G'day everyone, Goober here with another Torchlight Infinite video. In this video we'll be covering the Moto 2 build guide for Boom Moto. Now, I really like this build the last couple of seasons purely because it is automated. This one doesn't trigger all the time in town, which can drive you insane. You just stand there and it does all of the damage for you, and it's pretty chill. So the damage on this build is quite high, as you can see. Hit for 500 billion most of the time, and I'm unsure why it's not over 5 trillion. Oh, there it goes, finally. But it deals a whole ton. That should be over 5 trillion at all times. I'm not sure why it's being weird. Was something disabled? That's not enabled. That's right, I changed something. I don't know what I changed. And it's... that's also what I changed. I was stuffing around with Panacea. So 55% empower effect there. And that's all I changed. So there we go. It's 5 trillion all the time now. So the 55% empower effect makes a huge difference for damage. It was also doing about 5 trillion, so it's not needed. If you just want to hit the big number, it just makes you a little bit more tanky. So anyway, I will now go through each of the stages and we'll see what we have. Alrighty, first up we have gear and upgrades. Alrighty, my gear is okay. It is not fantastic, but it is pretty reasonable. My weapons are really quite good. However, you can use interlocking souls as well. If I had some with energy, I'd slap them on, but they're a cheap alternative. I probably would go with interlocking souls first, or if you've got a two-hander with some minion damage or something like that, that is perfectly fine. Ultimately, I believe that you want to go with Oversight purely because Oversight is very quick. The gloves that I have are good damage, but they're also kind of annoying. The slow that they apply is pretty frustrating, to be honest. I'll probably get rid of these once I craft something decent, because all that's really giving me is every 2.5 casts it gives plus 300% damage. I cast every 0.2 seconds, so every 2.5 casts give that extra. Alright, let's go through all of the gear. With the helmet, you want sealed mana as a priority. Then you want life, minions deal double damage, aura, and a resistance. Doing it this way makes it easy if you want to dreamcraft. So you just do the 5, then you can just dreamcraft and hopefully hit a bad or a downside against the 6th affix, and that doesn't actually give a downside to the item. So this item would go like that and then have minion max life, which I'll quickly do. Oh, I see why I didn't, because I don't have mats and I didn't want to buy them. I'll quickly try this, see what I get. Didn't get it, abandon that. Let's try a big one, see what we get. Feels like that's faster. Bond of Archery, Elemental Shock, level 30 Elemental Shock. If this hits, replaces that with a... It's not good. If that had just put that on and downgraded the 6th, I would have, accepted it, because someone else would have bought that, but, that's not good for my build. I don't do elemental damage, but you could ignore that and just look at the item that it was. In the neck space, you want a Warden's Breastpin. I'll show you how to get that towards after I've gone through all this gear. On the belt, which is one of the most pivotal upgrades that you can get, is the Winter of Origin belt. This changes your focus blessings from chance to deal double damage to minions gain 6% additional damage, additional minion damage, and minus summon cost. But you know, we're not casting our own abilities, so that is negligible. It is just focus blessings change to plus 6% additional minion damage, and can have up to 7 stats on this one, 7 extra additional blessing stacks. So that's really quite nice. And then just have some extra stuff on there. Rings, you just want resistance, resistance, resistance. And then max life, and command is really quite nice. This one is garbage, but this one is a lot better. Onto the weapons, I go with Oversight because of the speed boost, and it's quite reasonable to get a +9 wand, which is really quite nice. That one's probably worth a bit of Flame Elementium if you were crazy enough to attempt to get one of these. You're looking at, I think it cost me about 5,000 Flame Elementium to craft that. However, that is quite lucky. And the other one is only a +8, and you're looking at about 10,000 as well. 15,000 if you want that. So pretty pricey, but it's doable. You can watch my legendary crafting video to see how you can craft those. Onto the chest, you want max life, minion damage, tenacity blessing stacks. Own 2 tenacity blessing stacks is really quite nice. Just gives you extra damage reduction. Crit strike rating helps get your minions to 100% crit strike chance, and then some resistance there as well is quite nice. Obviously you would go for tier 0s if you have the currency to do so. A cheap glove is the Clenched Spring Glove, as you can see. If you're lucky enough to get one like this. Even that's only 150, so really quite cheap. Unless you get, you know, some tier 0s on there. So I guess my gloves are worth quite a bit. I'll probably get rid of them, as I said, and go with some spell damage and tankier gloves. +2 spell skill level would be really nice with some max life, and some resistance, or maybe some crit strike damage or something like that. Boots are really quite cheap. Mind Infusion boots. These I can't price check because they're not priceless. They're just ones that have dropped on the ground, and these drop quite often when you select that item. So how do you get a Warden's Breastpin? You can either go to the trade house and buy a Warden's Breastpin, which are going for a ridiculous amount of money. So 5,500 for a Warden's Breastpin, or what you can do, cool, that's all. Or you can just get some star shards. And the one that you want is Steel Forge, either Time Mark 8, which are about 3 each, or Time Mark 7. These are the ones that I would prefer to run, as you get a lot of the currency back. And these are 3 each. They've gone up in price. So you would buy these, and then you would run those, and they have a high chance to get Warden's Breastpin from this encounter. We got corrosion imbue. Oh, it actually shows 2-star now when it drops. That's kind of cool. Corrosion imbue isn't great. We're here for a Warden's Breastpin. If you click the little question mark over here, it shows you everything that can drop, and Warden's Breastpin is one of the items. There we go. This was run number 5, and we had a Warden's Breastpin drop, as well as the other stuff. So that was 5,500 for a 3-star priceless. Yes, I can't make mine tier 0. However, it's still possible to get a pretty decent Warden's Breastpin, and if you're just after the item to make it work, then this is definitely a solution to getting a Warden's Breastpin. Also, if you are minions cannot deal physical damage once, you want that corroded, then you could definitely get a bunch of these this way and corrode them until you hit that as well. So to craft that, all you need to do is hit craft until you get what you need there. It is going to use 10 plasticity each time, so you kind of want something decent. Trauma projectile. I'll craft this to see if we can get something good. It's not looking good so far. Shock mana. Pretty much got one more try. Chance to deal double damage doesn't really do much for us because it needs to be minions deal double damage and max life. So we didn't get anything on that one. However, that was only 5 runs, so you can get a whole bunch and craft the one that you need. Alright, possible upgrades. So this is not my build. This is someone else's build that I have gone with. It's Bonkers is his character name. It is Marcus on the comments. So Marcus has a +2 spell skill level pair of gloves with regen, max life, crit strike, and crit strike damage, which is really, really quite nice. I'll probably switch to something like this versus what I have. The chest, he has 20% max life on the chest, which is a really good dream as well, with active skill, max life, all res, and aura effect. Aura effect is really, really quite nice. The rings, pretty much what mine were as well, I believe. The dex is kind of meh, but the rest of that is really quite nice. And this is where I got the inspiration for I think I've got one that's exactly the same as this. Oh, maybe it was the 233. But anyway, that's really, really nice. And he's also using a Fiend Crown. That is an insane craft on the Fiend Crown. But, you know, Fiend Crown is a cheap alternative as well. The pedigrees I will get to when I do the talents. So, yeah, that's really nice too. I'll just keep looking at his gear. Anyway, next up we have talents. Alrighty, in talents, it's pretty standard for minion builds. The main nose, you go with Order and Mighty Guard. You can use Isomorphic Arms if you have a epic two-handed weapon with you know, a lot of stats that your minions can benefit from. However, I just use this because it gives 4 command, which is really nice, and +2 minion skill level. Oh, I can actually see the entire thing on this screen. That's pretty nice. Next up, we have Machinist with Boss for +1 max synthetic troop skill level, and mainly 18% chance for synthetic troops to deal double damage, which is really, really nice. You can use Broken Shell if you need the tank. Next up, we have Burning Aggression, so your minions have a 20% chance to ignore enemy armor. If you need more tank, you can go with Kinetic Conversion, so you take 20% less damage while moving around, basically. And every 100%, every 5 meters, you get a barrier, which is really quite nice. Deflection is really, really good. I believe that's on gloves. I think. Anywho, going through the points. That'll be the next point that I put in for some extra minion skill area. Onto Steel Vanguard, we have Reflection for the 30% additional aura effect. Aura effect is really, 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 really good. You can use Curtain or Resistance if you want. However, for damage and elemental aura, then aura effect is really, really quite nice. Here you can use Knowledgeable for the 55% Empower effect and plus 10 skill level, or you can go with Panacea for better potions. These would be nice, but that's all of the points here. I guess you could take off the armor and put in the max life if you want to instead. And there's some other alternates as well. Statue of the New God, we have a Focus Strike statue here. Pedigree of the Gods, sorry. It's pretty cheap. It's 100, and then if you want to just make things overpriced, add in that tiny little thing there. Ultimately, in the end, you want Peaceful Realm, and I believe it's Arcane. But Peaceful Realm Arcane will be probably 20,000 Flame Elementium, and you would then have a Sparks Legendary with all of the additional minion skill damage slates. However, I just have a +1 or own 1 additional tenacity, agility, and focus blessing stack, and then a bunch of +1 minion skill levels, focusing on max life, minion max life, crit damage, minion damage, those sorts of stats, because they're all really good. That's a pretty crappy one there, but I didn't want to re-roll it, so that's what I have. And that's garbage too. Anyway, I digress. I don't want to put too much money into slates before I go with the Sparks setup for the additional minion damage. There's no Focus Strike Arcane slates, which is a shame. Oops, Peaceful. Wow, 7,000. That's actually pretty reasonable. Arcane for the 20% additional max life. And then Peaceful Realm is the one that you want. 10k and 8k is really quite reasonable. They were 15, 20,000, 30,000 last season, so there's only 2 up. I wish I had 7,777 Flame Elementium. After you get that, you want Sparks. Nope. What am I thinking? What's it called? Next up, you want the When Sparks Set the Prairie Ablaze. This is what you get from the Immolating Flame cards. 20 Immolating Flames gets you one of these, and they're about 630 each, equaling about this much. Cheaper to buy the cards generally than to get those. And then once you have that, then you get the Last God's Tears here, and you start dumping another 1600 Flame Elementium into these. This is pretty cheap, honestly, for this part. Then once you have these, wow, the -1s are expensive. 2k, that's insane. Everyone wants order, it seems. Wonder if there's any minus 36%. Oh, it's just 18%, yeah. So about, these are mega expensive compared to last season, so that's interesting. Some people are dreaming. 16k for a 1k thing. Anyway, I digress. What are we up to? Next up, we have skills. Skills is a little bit interesting. Alrighty, for skills, the biggest damage upgrade that you can get for this build is Activation Medium Rhythm. You can also use Instruction if you want. However, Instruction only goes to 0.3%, 0.3 seconds. So this is a 50% damage increase over a 0.3 second. The benefit to Rhythm as well is it just gives you additional damage for every meter moved, up to 27% additional damage, and you're super fast, so you're always getting a lot of movement speed there, or movement for the next trigger. Honestly, you're probably getting 1 meter per second, so it's probably 10%, but it's still better than 0. So it triggers the supported skill on the closest enemy within 25 meters. So the minions don't have to travel. They're just always on the enemy, so they explode immediately, which is insane. You would think that the movement speed for the minions doesn't matter and the attack and cast speed doesn't matter. However, it's pretty impossible to not use servant speed. I've tested it. It's about 1.5 trillion DPS less if I don't use servant speed. Then you just want crit chance, crit damage. I could probably get away with this. However, this is the setup that I know that I'm going to get a maximum amount of damage with. So you can go with that. If you didn't have crit strike rating in here, you could use Servant Life or potentially Steamroll for some more skill effect area. So the explosions are bigger. Next up, we want Compound Source with an activation medium for life. When below 92%, it triggers a skill. Residues, so that effect doesn't end when you get to max life. Limber Stretch, just for some extra movement speed. And Auto Charge, so even on bosses, you're getting extra charges. Although not many bosses outlive 5 trillion DPS. Next up, we have Blink with cost conversion, so it uses life instead of mana. If you had Arcane, you wouldn't need cost conversion. And you just have Blink with Magic Dash for extra charges. Next up, we have Machine Army. If you didn't use Mind Infusion Boots, you would have Dark Gate with a activation medium here. It doesn't matter on the cooldown here because Machine Army has a 12-second cooldown, so even a normal preparation here would do just as good. Mass Effect and Self-Sacrifice. Here we have Frost Shield with another preparation. 6-second. Frost Shield has a 6-second cooldown, so that just makes sure that they're getting triggered at all times. Actually don't need the extended duration. Whatever, it's there. Mark is applied to minions or enemies. This is only really beneficial on bosses, so you just dash through the boss. It applies Mark. You're dealing 40%, 19% additional damage to those enemies. And extra defensive ability, minus duration. That's why I have the extended duration. Next up, what? I need to fix my energy. I've obviously just upgraded a piece of gear and I've lost some energy, so I can't actually activate all of my stuff. Bit embarrassing. Ultimately, you would have candles with minus sealed mana as well as a servant damage, crit strike damage, or hardened. I've got hardened on 1 and servant damage on the other. Ultimately, you want +2 minion skill levels, minus sealed mana, and one of these 3 abilities. However, that's going to be mega expensive, so that's what you have. Once you have the sealed mana on both of these, you can activate 3 supports for each of the auras. So Precise Fearless, this one is really insane. It gives your minions crit strike rating and crit strike damage, and it gives you crit strike rating and crit strike damage. However, Wardens boosts that and gives it to minions a second time. So this is massive. Do not put Selfless in this slot. That's all I'm going to say about that. Precise of both of these is really good. Precise adds paralysis to weapon amplification, which is 10% increased damage taken by enemies. And Precise Fearless gives extra attack speed. I believe that's the only thing it adds. Yeah, it's just 8% attack speed. So it's not that big, but it's something for the minions. Here you would ultimately want Precise Elemental Resistance. I've only had 6 drop this season, and since they're about 1500 Flame Elementium, I'd rather die than use it. But you want Precise Elemental Res in there. And then, to go faster, a bit of Precise Swiftness for cooldown recovery speed and movement speed. Righty, finally we have hero traits. I realise that I've been waffling quite a bit. I'm quite tired. It's the end of the day, and that's what you get with me. Sorry about that. Alrighty, on to hero traits. One of the biggest things about this build is adds 1 to 2 physical damage to attacks for every X amount of max life. You want that max life to be as low as possible, so you get as many 1 to 2 physical damage as possible. If you want to check the max life of the minion, you just go into your info, and in the second tab, it was showing yesterday. Why is it not showing today? I hate this game so much. It patched and it removed all of the info. Urgh. That's where you would see it if the game, actually worked. So here you can go with minion crit strike rating. It's a really easy way of getting a lot of crit strike rating for your minions, as well as this is the main one. This is the nice to have. All other things you can put on there is obviously crit strike damage, or max life, that sort of thing as well. Personally, I like the crit strike rating as it gives quite a large boost. You can also use the Heart of the Ethereal Realm if you have 50,000 Flame Elementium spare for the 5 slots. In here, you want adds 24% of the player's max life to the base life of the minions. That is really big. If you have 8,000 max life, that is huge. I don't, because my gear does not have the max life stuff on it. Ideally, you want self-destruct damage here. However, other things that you can go with are movement speed or crit strike rating, crit damage. Minion max life and max life are really both quite good. However, these are generally not too expensive. 100, 200, it's not too bad. If you want to go ham, this is where it starts to get expensive. If you go with tier 1, honestly 400's pretty reasonable as well. Onto here, same. Minion max life is really quite nice. If you go tier 1, 200 is completely reasonable for max life and minion max life. The expensive part is when you get here. You can also go with a prototype which costs 1 flame elementium, or for that 30% additional damage, then you go with this one and it's 2,500 flame elementium basically. 1 FE, 2,500 FE. 26% additional damage there. It's very noticeable. You'll still be clearing 8-3 without it, but that's what it is. That just gives you Heroic Sacrifice, so you've got both of the end traits. Going through, you want Surprise Force, into Quick Battle, into Preparation, Guerrilla Tactics, and Fuel War with War. With that Hero Memory, you also get Heroic Sacrifice. That is the character in a nutshell, using Drop Spirits. You do quite a large amount of damage. It should be almost capped. There we go, we just capped 5 trillion DPS in Drop Spirits. It's a little bit over 5 trillion. Not much though. It's pretty much 5 trillion in Drop Spirits. In DPS pack spirits, it caps 5 trillion in 1 second. So well and truly over 5 trillion DPS with drop spirits. I'll just quickly show you the ones that I have. I don't really ever use this because I have 5 trillion DPS and not much in the game can live past that anyway. I've been lucky enough to get a lot of this Whisper Wind Leaves. Mainly it gives crit strike rating for recently summoned minions, which is really quite nice, and additional damage. The one that boosted the damage the most is this one though, because it gives minion max life, etc. But it gives 14% chance for the minions to deal double damage, which puts me at 100%, I believe. Then finally, this guy just gives minion max life and also crit strike rating for recently summoned minions. So that is my 5T DPS build guide. Hopefully I've covered everything with some cheap alternatives. You can get this for really quite cheap. I had that one, this one down here, drop in 5 runs, which was about 200 flame elementium. Excuse me. The alternate hero memory is 1 flame elementium. You can get some oversights that just drop constantly. You can make those a lot cheaper, or you can just go with interlocking souls, which are 2 flame elementium. Rings, you don't really need rings to do trillions of DPS. Winter of Origin is a must. Warden's Breastpin, as I said, you can get quite easily. This other stuff isn't that great. Mind Infusion Boots, these are actually terrible. I just kept getting them until I got movement speed, and then I turned that off in the event. I'll quickly show you that. So in the event, you can go down to Legendary Vision. I currently have Oversight, Mind Infusion Boots, and Twisted Branch. That one's just basically because you could put Fang Ground in there instead, and that just enables those to drop a lot more often. And every 72 hours, you just have to change it to whatever you want to drop. And yeah, that's active for the entire season, which is fantastic. Alrighty, I'll stop waffling. That's what I've got. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.